Okay, I am back for a third attempted stream today. I've been having many technical difficulties. I updated my OBS software because it kept freezing my video. And I don't know if the update is going to fix it because I already encountered one freeze since installing the new version of OBS. But I don't know what else I can do at this point. Where's the... I want to make sure I'm sharing the right window on screen here. Oh, Nick. Hi, Nick. You say you have video and sound. Good. I hope it stays that way. Hopefully I don't get any more freezes. Okay, I think I fixed something. My Zoom has crashed also today couple times. I don't know if that's because I lost my Wi-Fi or what. I had a power outage, and I think that caused me to lose my Zoom connection. But then even after the power came back, I lost it again. And that's what I don't know. Maybe I have to update my Zoom as well. I see Objective Ethics is here. Hello. Yeah, it's still freezing. It looks like it's still freezing. Yeah, why does it do that? That's a great expression on the freeze there. See if I... Oh. There you go. Okay, so maybe Zoom is the problem, because I just updated to the latest version of OBS and it's still freezing. So maybe I have to update Zoom. Maybe it's TikTok not wanting him to stream. Maybe the Jesus God doesn't want you to stream. I stopped watching your live streams when they started containing ad breaks. I turned off ads for this one. You say I can rewatch later and skip all the ads so that it is a much more enjoyable experience for me. Someone actually offered to pay me to turn off the ads the last day I live streamed. And I was going to do that again today. I was going to turn them on for a while and then see if anyone offered me a super chat to turn them off. But I never got to that point because I've been having so many technical difficulties. I was going to see if I could pop this chat out and then at least share this chat window. For TY. All right, so we'll see how long it goes until I freeze again. All right, so what shall we talk about? Oh, I guess I should private the previous version. On my YouTube channel so people don't get confused. private. Okay. Oh, I have monetization turned on? No. No, monetization is off, so you shouldn't be seeing ads. I froze again. Okay, well, should I download Zoom? The latest version of Zoom? I guess I could also restart my computer. But I'm tempted to download Zoom first. So last time I had to stop the stream, I unintentionally ended the YouTube stream. This time I'm going to try to avoid that so I don't have to create a new link. So I think once I stop this stream, it's just going to buffer, but you shouldn't have to go to a new link once I get this going again. All right, so I'm going to try to update Zoom and or restart my computer. And if I have updates, I will type it in the YouTube chat. Okay, I'm back. I updated Zoom. I did not restart my computer. I wanted to isolate the variables. That's why I didn't also restart my computer. Because I want to, if I did both, I wouldn't be able to figure out what was causing the problem. Looks like, yeah, froze again. So, oh, actually, let me restart. If it freezes, one more time, then I think I'll restart my computer. Because that's the only thing left I haven't tried yet. I've updated OBS, I've updated Zoom. The only thing left is to restart my computer. All right, we got 4 people here. Now, if this were TikTok, I will be able to see who those people are. But on YouTube, I don't know who they are unless they chat. I can guess who they are. I think that's a good chance Florida Nick is one of them. Oh, maybe I should now delete the second posts I did on Facebook and X. Because they are again going to have the wrong link. Okay. I deleted those posts. Anybody want to raise a topic? I see 5 people now. I haven't frozen yet. Thanks for the likes on the stream. I got a lot of viewers on my last stream from 5 days ago. That was really good. Over 600 views. It's been a while since I had that many. And a lot more comments than usual, too. I just froze. I just noticed it. So I'm going to restart my computer. That's the only thing left I can think of to do. And that should not end the stream on YouTube. It's just going to buffer while I'm restarting my computer. And then once it's back up, I will reconnect. Oh, I didn't realize my... X page was up. Okay. And I will, again, update you if I have updates in the YouTube chat. Hopefully I can usually start within 5 minutes, restart my computer. All right, I'm back. All right, I've tried everything I can. Upgraded all my software, and I restarted my computer. I don't know how long it's been since I restarted my computer. Probably weeks. And I learned various things about software as I was doing all that. That's good. Okay, so anyone want to raise a topic? My audio looks different. My audio mixers on OBS, they now are vertical instead of horizontal. That's the way it is in the new version. Oh, I should open up my Google Voice page. Okay, don't see any calls. Nick says audio sounds different. Oh, that's probably because I am not using my podcast mic. Yeah. Now it sounds better, probably. Yeah, I guess whenever I restart my computer, it I have to manually tell it to use my podcast mic. Thanks for mentioning that. I guess I shouldn't turn on ads since you all had to suffer through so much pain of all these technical difficulties. But if you're a YouTube Premium member, you didn't see ads anyway. Welcome back, Dan. Thank you. Back to normal. Yeah, I hope it's back to normal. I updated my Zoom software, I updated my OBS software, and then I restarted my computer. So hopefully it was at least one of those things will fix it. Haven't frozen yet. It looks like restarting the computer was the most important thing I needed to do because updating the other two softwares, Zoom and OBS, did not fix the freezing problem. The last thing I did was restart. Does anyone have any disagreements with anything on my background? I guess Mellow Mau does, if he's a Buddhist. But he's trying to integrate Buddhism with Objectivism, so maybe he thinks it's all consistent. Oh, Objective Ethics is back. Hi. There is a glitch to skip ads without premium or ad blockers, but unfortunately it doesn't work for Livestream. I thought there were skippable ads in live streams as well as non-skippable. It's great for watching documentary or movies or stream uploads though. So there's a glitch which enables you to skip ads even if you don't have YouTube Premium or ad blockers. But the glitch doesn't work for live streams. Okay, I've never heard of that. I don't have ads turned on right now, so no one should be seeing any ads. Maybe I'll turn them on next stream, but not today. People have suffered enough through the technical issues. It's great for watching documentary or movies or stream uploads, though. The glitch is great for that. Or you mean premium or ad blockers is great for that. I'm not sure you could control a glitch. Buddhism cannot be reconciled with Objectivism. Buddhism teaches the middle way. Objectivism is certainly not the middle way. I don't think Buddhism can be reconciled with Objectivism. There are different versions of it, though. There's Mahayana Buddhism and Theraveda Buddhism and Zen Buddhism. But I think probably any version of Buddhism is not reconcilable with Objectivism. But I don't know much about Theraveda, which is the kind of Buddhism Mellow Mau is trying to reconcile with Objectivism. The glitch because it is free and you don't need additional software or apps. Mao says, I believe it can. Buddhism is made of 3 trainings, one of which is ethics, and one of which is a series of propositions to study. I think one difference in perspective is that Buddhism sees needs as a source of suffering. If you could just escape the fact that you need things, then you will... That's the way to peace of mind. But Objectivism doesn't see needs as a bad thing. They're just part of human nature. And needs should be satisfied. You shouldn't try to negate the fact that you have needs or somehow stifle them. Agreed with Dan, I am reconciling Theraveda Buddhism with Objectivism. The life of a Buddhist monk, that seems quite different than the sort of life an objectivist would support. Like, productivity is a very important part of Objectivism. And I imagine a Buddhist sitting in a lotus position in the woods doesn't seem like a really productive activity. I think it's fine to rest and take breaks, but it seems like it's much more of a central feature of life for the Buddhists, whereas not so for the Objectivists. Is the Buddhist trying to escape the need to be a producer of material values and just rely on charity? I guess you live quite a different life than the Buddhist monk, so if you have a job, I assume you're not sitting in the woods meditating all your day. I mean, right now you're watching my live stream, so I guess at least right now you're not doing that. So it seems like the role of productivity is very different for the two. Maybe I should look up Theraveda Buddhism so I know more about it. The differences in Buddhist philosophy have to do with devas, bodhisattvas, etc. But they all believe in the Four Noble Truths and Eightfold Path that ultimately leads to the middle way. Maybe I should look up Buddhism now. That's what I'm going to do. Specifically, Theraveda Buddhism. Theraveda Buddhism is, meaning the doctrine of the elders, is the oldest surviving school of Buddhism. It emphasizes the original teachings of the historical Buddha, the strict observance of monastic discipline, and the path to individual enlightenment, as in Arahant, a perfected person. So there's no monastic life for Objectivism. Objectivism wouldn't promote a monastic life. If that means giving up material possessions. But let me go to the Wikipedia page. That was just well, there might have been some good stuff later in the overview. The Pali Canon, the Four Noble Truths, and the Noble Eightfold Path. The foundational framework that identifies the nature of suffering. Suffering is really central to Buddhism, and getting rid of it, whereas it doesn't have that kind of emphasis in Objectivism. Nirvana. There's more of a focus on the negative than the positive, it seems. For Objectivism, the goal is to pursue values, not to escape disvalues. To pursue something positive, not just the cessation of something negative. Key practices: meditation, monastic life, merit making. Are you up for a debate? I would like to explore what productivity and faith mean. Also, some questions about your calls to Sam Cedar's show. That web summary was pretty good. One caveat: there's one set of teachings for monastics and one set for lay people. Yeah, we can do a call or a debate. Theraveda is the dominant religion in Sri Lanka, Thailand, Myanmar, Laos, and Cambodia. You can call in whenever you like. I'm just looking at the Wikipedia now. You'll call in 2 minutes. I'm setting up my laptop. All right. Well, I'm just going to step away for a couple of minutes. I'll be back shortly. Let's see. I'm going to turn off my mic volume. Let's see. While I step away. I'll turn off the screen too. And I'll just type in the chat. I'll be back in a couple minutes. I'm back. I see Mellow Mau has just called in. Hello. Can you hear me? Maybe you can hear me, but I can't hear you. Let me make sure my audio is working. Oh, now I hear you. Can you hear me? Oh, okay. Sounds decent to me. I don't hear anything. Well, I'll start by saying I think the problem ultimately turned out to be just my computer. Because updating OBS isn't what fixed the problem of my video freezing. It was only once I restarted the computer. So there's that. But as for OBS, there's a bit of a learning curve. I used it for the first time a few years ago, not for a live stream, but just to record a video it was a reaction video. Oh, sorry. I think I haven't turned your audio on for the audience. Hold on. I have to turn on the Zoom. Where's the Zoom setting? Here we go. Okay, I think that's going to work now. And let me also go into the other scenes. Can you say something?
Yes, this is Mellow Mau.
Okay. And one last scene. Okay. Whoops. No, hold on. Okay, now it should be good.
This is me. This is Mellow Mau.
All right. Thanks. So I used it a few years ago for the first time for a reaction video I did. So I wanted to have my box appear in the corner of the image, and then the majority of the screen was the thing I was reacting to. And I think there is a way you could do that in Zoom, but you have more flexibility in how it appears in OBS. Like you can move around your box in the in OBS, and you can make it different sizes. Whereas in Zoom, I think it's just it's always in the upper right or something, and it's only a certain size. You can't adjust that unless maybe people know how to do that, and I just don't know. But at least it seems to me that there's some options you have with OBS that you don't get with Zoom, and you have these scenes which you don't have in Zoom. Like I can very easily switch between this scene we're in now and the chat scene and my Chrome window here, but you can share all these things as well in Zoom, but it's just a more cumbersome way of trying to transition between them. So it's less of a smooth kind of interface. So, but it takes a little while to learn. I mean, I'm still learning stuff, little things to this day, and I've been using it for months. But I think it's worth it overall. I think it's a upgrade over Zoom.
So I must be missing something. Is Zoom also a streaming tool?
It is, well, it can be used for streaming. Like I have when I do a YouTube live stream, I I don't have to use any other software other than Chrome, I guess. I could just open up my Chrome browser, open up my YouTube, log into my YouTube account, and use just stream straight through YouTube. But then I can't take calls. So if I want to be able to have calls, I need to use some other software. So I could just, if I'm just doing a monologue and I don't need to interact with anyone, YouTube would be fine for that. It can access my webcam and I can just do a stream in my web browser. But if I want to be able to take calls, then I need to use some kind of other software. Well, I guess even there I could use, if I only want to do audio calls, I don't need Zoom. I could just use Chrome, and I could open up my Google Voice account, which is what I have. The number on my background here, that's a Google Voice number. So if I have another tab open in my Google Chrome browser, I can take calls. So yeah, I guess I don't even need Zoom for calls. But if I want to do an a video call, like I'm doing right now, you don't have your camera turned on, but you could. To do a call like that, I need some other software. And that's what I use Zoom for. Now, maybe there's a way to do that as well, just in Chrome, but I'm not aware of it. So that's...
It seems to me you got a pretty good setup. You've got a variety of options here, of course, Google Voice and Zoom.
Yeah. And I like that I have a regular phone number, and I think that might... it makes it immediately clear that this is a call-in show. Whereas if I didn't have a phone number there, people might not as quickly realize it's a call-in show. But if I only have the phone number and I don't have a Zoom link, which you use to call in, then that might deter some people who don't want to use a regular phone number. Maybe they're overseas and they don't have an international calling plan, or maybe it's just too expensive. But the Zoom link is free, I think, no matter where you are. So I like having that as well as an option. Also, your own number doesn't appear. Some people might not want me to see their number. Although I found out you can turn your number off so that it doesn't appear to people. So sometimes I get a call through the Google Voice number and it says unknown number. Usually I can see the number, but there is a way to disguise your numbers. So if someone is concerned about being anonymous with regard to their number, there is a way to turn it off. But if people don't know about that option, they might be concerned about having their number displayed, or at least seen by me. So that's another reason it's good to have something like Zoom where there's no number attached to their name.
I think that's true. Even there, you got to be careful. You might recall, or of course, I guess I recall better that I think the second or third time I called into your show, I accidentally clicked the link where it still had like my work account, and then I just went ahead and put my name out there on YouTube anyway. But I don't care too much. It's not like I really care about my YouTube identity. Thankfully, I only say sensible things. But I guess you do give people two options for choosing ways to call in that work for them for privacy reasons, or for you said like monetary reasons. Maybe Europeans can't call in for some reason.
And
that makes sense.
There's also a way for me to, like I can turn off right now I'm going to turn off the video. So you can hear me now, but if you're watching on YouTube, it's just black. You don't see anything. And if someone shows up by accident on Zoom with their actual name, I can turn this off while I'm bringing someone on. And if I see something like what looks like an actual name, I can say, hey, do you really want that to show up? And then they can change their name in Zoom before I display it on YouTube. So that's a nice feature of OBS. You can turn off certain scenes or parts of certain scenes. And I don't know that there's a way to do that in Zoom.
Fair enough. Fair enough. I'd like to cover some topics with you today. So I wanted to start with some warm-ups. Uh, Obviously we were just talking about this in the chat. Of course, I'm well known to you as an individual who is working on a project to reconcile Buddhism and Objectivism, Theravada Buddhism specifically. I appreciate you allowing me to come on this show and work it out in real time with you. Today, I'm going to be a little more attentive to a concern you raised on our last call. You raised, like, this is an objectivist show, so I should say things that promote objectivism or don't require you to sanction arguments you don't agree with. So I think today I'm going to hopefully be a little less lectury. And I think I just wanted to acknowledge that I realized that I was a little too eager to work into, talk about a different system than objectivism, although I am certainly willing to present arguments to you and have you react to them. I'll acknowledge that I will be more attentive to making it something that you can productively engage with. It's productive to this show, it's productive to the causes you have, and doesn't require you to essentially sign on to things that you have no idea where I'm going, or you have no idea whether this is an argument you would agree with.
I
With
didn't have
that
a
being
problem with the way you've been doing your calls. And if I ever do have a problem, I'll let you know. But I haven't so far. I mean, I don't want to help or sanction something that I think is going to undermine objectivism. But I think that the types of conversations we had, or the ways they've gone, I don't think I've been doing that. I've been discussing, or we've been discussing, how objectivism relates to Buddhism, but I don't think that implies a sanction of it. I mean, what you go off and do on your own, like as you're writing your book, maybe I wouldn't want to be involved in some ways with that, but at least the kind of conversations we've had on my channel, I think have been okay. And otherwise, I wouldn't have done them.
Good, good. I like hearing that. Yeah, I figure I'm at least as respectful or easy to talk to as some of the people who call in and like disagree strictly with you, right? They're like totally skeptical of atheism or totally skeptical of objectivity or capitalism. So I'm at least less in disagreement and less aggressive than some of your other callers.
You're
But
mellow.
nonetheless, yeah, I'm mellow. I live up to my name, I suppose. It's part of my nature is that I'm a mellow person. So, but I appreciate hearing that. Of course, we'll keep this conditional. So, anytime you can tell me if I'm being a real jerk face, but I'm just being facetious a little bit. I don't actually think that's a concern. But thank you. I appreciate what you said also. So, I wanted to talk about a couple of topics today. I thought we could have a warm up. I was listening to, gosh, like 3 videos ago, you had a call with an individual named Simon, and you and he had an interesting debate about the start of the universe. And I thought it was interesting. I thought both of you seemed decently well done. But I'm sorry, y'all seemed decently reasonable. You were making points that were reasonably thought out. And the call ended with Simon being totally skeptical that there could be a reason-based argument for believing that the universe is eternal. Essentially, he said either you have to take the Christian stance that there was a creator who initiated the universe, or you have to take the Big Bang stance that the universe came into existence. And I interpreted your arguments as saying, well, the universe is all that exists. So if it didn't exist at some point, then it couldn't have existed. So if all of existence has to have existed, it doesn't make sense to say that it came into existence. And you and he kind of had some back and forth. I think y'all were talking past each other, and he just politely agreed to disagree and was like, I just don't agree either. He basically said in pretty lucid terms, I can't find a reason-based argument for believing that the universe did not exist. I'm sorry, that the universe had eternal existence is what he was skeptical of. So I wanted to warm up a little bit with this. I think I liked your arguments and can see eye to eye with you. I more wanted to discuss the terms of the argument and see how we might articulate that better, how I might articulate that better if I were in that situation. So that's what I said made sense to you so far. Is the context make sense to you, or do you want to prime the topic a little differently?
I think we can just get into it. I just want to acknowledge somebody tried to call in. I don't think anyone else heard the ring, but if that was you, you can let me know in the YouTube chat what you want to talk about, and then I'll decide if I want to take your call later. I'm just going to stick on this call for now. I'm not sure how long it'll be, but if you let me know what you want to talk about, that'll help me decide how to fit that into the show. But I put my Google Voice on Do Not Disturb, so I won't hear it ring again. But you can also leave a voicemail if you'd like, and let me know that way what you want to talk about. Okay, so yeah, you can go ahead, Mellow Mau, and
Sure. So
yeah.
if you accept those terms, basically Simon's position was I can't think of a reason-based argument for believing that the universe is eternal. And then you were trying to persuade him, but he just didn't seem persuaded. Uh, First, I think it would greatly help conversations like that if we just added the tag physical universe versus metaphysical universe. So I think you and he were talking past each other because perhaps what you were saying was maybe the Big Bang brought the physical universe into existence. Matter blew up and spread, but the metaphysical universe must be eternal. It must already be the case that the law of causality is true, the law of identity is true, and those must have existed before the Big Bang and after the Big Bang. And really, you and he are just haggling over whether the physical universe is eternal. And then maybe that started. Maybe matter emerged with the Big Bang from a singularity of pure energy, or maybe there's some refined physics terms we need to use here. But so far, does that seem reasonable to you to pose that the metaphysical universe is what is eternal by virtue of reason, but the physical universe, maybe some empirical data would we could haggle over whether that is eternal or whether physical matter emerged. Is
I haven't
that
thought
kind
about
of
that before, whether it's better to talk in terms of, to make a distinction between the physical and the metaphysical universe, and say the metaphysical universe is eternal, but the physical is not. I don't know if I would want to say that. There's a question of what physical means. I don't know if we should get into that now, but there's definitely an academic debate about that topic.
fair?
But I guess I think a plausible view is that there is physical stuff which does not include mental stuff. Often the term physical is understood in contrast to the mental.
Agreed.
And I think it's plausible that physical stuff pre-exists mental stuff. Like 10 billion years ago, I don't think there was any consciousness. I think consciousness evolved into being much more recently. Not until there was life, which didn't exist, at least on Earth, I think, until 3 or so billion years ago. Um, so I guess before the existence of consciousness, the only things that did exist were physical. I think that's right, or at least I'm not persuaded it's wrong. So would I want to say that the physical stuff is eternal? Um, I'm not sure that there is much of a distinction. I'm not sure there's any distinction between the metaphysical universe and the physical universe pre-consciousness. But I mean, if you take physical and mental stuff to be exhaustive of what exists, then before mental stuff, all there is physical stuff. And if metaphysical just means what's real, then the only real stuff is physical stuff. Some people say numbers are in neither category. I think some people view numbers as abstract entities. That might imply a Platonic kind of view. But I don't think that's right. I think numbers are mental. They're a human perspective on things. So I think it might be right to say the physical and the mental exhausts what exists. But let me not go on for too long. Let me just stop there and come back to you, see what you want to say.
I like that this is still valuable debate for me. I also think I need a little refinement on the physical mental dichotomy and metaphysical versus other. So I like that. It triggered some good thoughts for me. Um, okay, then perhaps the dichotomy of metaphysical versus physical doesn't really gain me anything. Hmm. All right, that was one of the points I wanted to bring to you. I think I feel satisfied that I don't know if that gets me anything. Maybe it, maybe it, maybe I'm trying to communicate something a little differently. Maybe I'm trying to say the metaphysical or the universe as such must be eternal, but the matter inside the universe might change form, and we could view the Big Bang as a moment when I believe the current model is that the singularity was pure energy, and then energy was converted to matter, and then the Big Bang occurred, and matter quickly formed, right? I think it's believed that it was subatomic particles, and then atomic particles formed, and then materials formed, like you had like dust in space. And so I think that's more or less the Big Bang view, is it's like pure energy, and then a big chunk of it was converted to matter, and then space expanded. But
Oh, hold on a
maybe
second.
yeah,
It looks like someone stole my profile picture and created a fake account. So I gotta block this person in the chat and
strange.
report it to. It looks like we got hit by some trolls. I'm not displaying the chat on the screen. That's good on YouTube.
I do not regret talking about the Big Bang now. I think it'll give these trolls some perspective. Like, if you don't have enough scientific background to just quickly articulate, like, give me the hierarchy of materials to substances, substances to molecules, molecules to atoms, subatomic particles, like, you already have physics homework to do instead of being in here trolling.
I'm
Not that
trying to
that's like a
choose
necessary skill
which.
in life, but
Let's see which category. Somewhere there's a way to select an option. Like there's the options they give me on when I do this report: unwanted commercial content, porn or sexually explicit material, child abuse, hate speech, promotes terrorism, harassment or bullying, suicide or self-injury, misinformation. Maybe it's under that category. Hide user on my channel. I used to see something about impersonation, I think explicitly, but I don't see
I'll
that
just
option
quickly
now.
I'll just quickly Google what is impersonation on YouTube. I think that might be considered bullying.
Okay, well, I
Um,
just looks like that. Oh, is this? This is unhide user. No, he's. Why does his? Do I? Maybe I have to refresh this chat, and then he'll disappear. Okay, yeah. Now I don't see his messages, and but I think there's some other trolls in here too. Let me see who else. Oh, there. One of his messages disappeared, but there's still another one. Okay, I'm just going to say hide from this channel. Oh, why does it? That's weird. It doesn't give me an option to hide it from this channel. The only option is unhide. He's already hidden, so. All right, I'll just delete the message. Okay. It's supposed to. I thought when I hid someone from the channel, it automatically deleted all their messages. That's what it's done in the past. I don't have to go through manually and delete each one.
if it helps, I just messaged you in Zoom. There's a YouTube page for reporting impersonations. But even this
Okay,
page is not that good. Well, this page is okay. There's a big blue button to do it.
thanks. Okay, looks like I deleted all the ones from that guy. Oh no, there's more earlier. All right, let me open this in another window. I'm looking for someone else to block. All right, I think I'm gonna. Okay, here's someone I obviously need to block. Okay, that
Uh,
time his message was automatically deleted once I blocked him.
Dan, by any chance, are you familiar with Poe's law of the internet?
Hose law?
Poe with a P.
Poe's law. No.
Poe's law is if you spend enough time on the internet, YouTube, Reddit, social, forums, you'll eventually encounter someone who is saying or doing something, and you genuinely can't tell if they are being sarcastic and trollish or if they are making a sincere statement. And I'm getting that kind of experience now because some of these accounts that joined have such silly profile names. It's like I honestly can't tell if their names are an obvious indication that they're trolls or if they like genuinely think these are normal account names to have. I lean towards assuming bad intent, bad faith, but some of these names just on site
Yeah.
to me, earn my disrespect.
Nick says, I chose harassment of others as the option to report.
Me too. The one guy who impersonated you, I chose harassment of others as well.
Okay. Well, maybe one of these guys is the one who tried to call in. I saw someone left a voicemail, but I didn't listen to it. All right. Well, I blocked 2 or 3 people, so I don't know if I should block anyone else. So maybe never mind. I'm not. I'm trying to think of the best way to deal with these. I don't know if I should just block all these people or not.
Fair enough. But if you want to screen a call, perfectly fine by me. I'm not impatient.
What if I just block all these people and say, email me if you want to get unblocked, and if they really care, if they're serious, they can email me and get unblocked. I don't know if that's a good thing to do. All right, well, let's just continue, and I'll try to ignore them for a while, and but I might have to go back and spend some more time moderating. But let's just continue for now.
Sure, sure. Um,
Where were
so
we?
I wanted to respond to Greg Lewis in the chat. He was explaining Poe's law,
Oh,
and I just want to react to him. But that is a good summary. His quick summary of Poe's law is good, and it's a good one. I know of like 2 or 3 internet laws, but Poe's law is a good one. And I think you would have more personal experiences than me because you call in to other people's shows, including TikTok. You probably could think of an experience or two where I think you said that you had a call with a TikToker named Vegan Bolshevik,
yeah.
and I did not listen to this call. I think I just heard you summarizing how it gone for you, but I would imagine talking with such a person is the kind of experience where you're like, is this person for real or is this an act? Moment by moment, you're just like, does this person genuinely believe what they're saying, or is this an elaborate act? And it would be a appropriate moment for Poe's Law.
I think he was real. This guy's
Wow.
well. He was the host, so I could see his face, and he was the host of the live stream, and I called into his live stream, and he's yeah. I think he's a real communist. I didn't get the
Wow.
vibe that he was pretending.
Well, there you go. There you go. That's why we have a law like this. Sometimes people are genuinely saying what they think. But my apologies. I had one other comment about that whole like what is the start of the universe argument you were having with Simon. I think you do have a reason-based argument for persuading him, and so I wanted to pose it to you. Basically, per the law of causality, because per the law of causality, everything in existence has a cause. I could find a more appropriate formulation per Leonard Peikoff, but let me just articulate it that way. Per the law of causality, any entity in existence is caused by something. Therefore, a start of the universe was either caused by something that preceded it, or the start of the universe had no cause, which would violate the law of causality, or the start of the universe was self-caused, which would also violate the law of causality. Therefore, the universe must have been, the Big Bang must have been caused by something that preceded it. Ergo, the universe is eternal. So, what do you think? How strong does that argument feel to you?
I might need to write this down. So it's an argument that the universe is eternal. That's the conclusion of the
Yes,
argument.
that the Big Bang, and I guess it's a corollary, the Big Bang was not the start of the universe, or should not be interpreted as the start of the universe.
Okay. Let me share this screen. Oh, it's already being shared. The Big Bang is not the start of the universe. And so the premise, or one premise, was, well, I guess that this is also a conclusion, but before that you had something about causation.
For me, the only premise is the law of causality. Assume, as given, the law of causality, and that the Big Bang is a phenomenon that occurred. Take those as givens.
So, how would you formulate the law of causality? What is that law?
Every entity in existence was caused by something that preceded it.
Okay.
I will look up real quick how Leonard Peikoff has it. I think I have a definition from him somewhere.
Every entity in existence was caused by something that preceded it. Now, that is actually not the way it's understood in Objectivism. So I think the formulation in Objectivism would be something like entities act in accordance with their nature. And it's less of a temporal perspective. So there's not a reference to something preceding something else. Although I think many people do hold that view of causality, that it's a temporal kind of relationship. You have a cause and then you have an effect, and the one precedes the other. But I think that temporal perspective is not, at least not in the foreground of the objectivist, or maybe also the Aristotelian view of causality. It's more, the focus is on things act in accordance with their nature. So I'm not sure what impact that has on this argument, but I guess maybe it would render this premise false if you take.
I've got a. These are good points about the temporal element being wrong. I've got a definition from ITOE from Leonard Peikoff, and I just put it in the chat. Let me know if we could just import this one.
Okay. Since things are what they are, since everything that exists possesses a specific identity, nothing in reality can occur causelessly or by chance. Okay. That seems reasonable. I don't. Is that a definition of causality, or just a statement relating to causality? I mean,
I have one or two other descriptions of the law of causality from Ayn Rand, but I think this one suffices for my argument. So it might not be a definition exactly, but I think this one, like, I can apply this one.
The one from Peikoff?
Yes.
Okay. Well, I can copy that over. Let me do that. Okay. I've got it in quotes. Since things are what they are, since everything that exists possesses a specific identity, nothing in reality can occur causelessly or by chance. And do we need anything else, or is it supposed to follow just from that the universe is eternal?
I take as given, like, take the law of causality as given, and take as given that the Big Bang occurred. Therefore, the Big Bang could not have occurred causelessly. Something must have caused the Big Bang. Ergo, something existed that preceded the Big Bang. Ergo, the universe precedes the Big Bang.
Okay. Um, and that's, I guess, that the universe precedes the Big Bang. That's just another way of saying what I already have here, or at least closely related. The Big Bang is not the start of the universe. Something preceded. Let me add that here. Something preceded the Big Bang. Well, I think it's right that something preceded the Big Bang. I just am not clear yet on whether the argument you've given for that claim is a sound argument. Maybe it is. I'm not clear yet about it.
Fair. And that is what I'm asking you. I see Greg Lewis in the chat making a good articulation, I believe to be a good articulation. And I believe what Greg is saying here, it more closely resembles what objectivists have to say, and it more closely resembles what you were trying to say to Simon. I would call Greg Lewis's argument in the chat argument by nature. Maybe this is kind of a weird glossing I'm giving it, but you could say like the nature of the universe is that it is everything that exists. So argument by nature, the universe must be eternal. But I'm to tell you why I'm even bringing up this topic. I'm trying to show you or proofread with you an argument by deduction that the universe precedes the Big Bang. Argument by deduction, right? Here are two premises, derive, 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 therefore the universe is eternal. But I believe Greg Lewis's articulation is a more common one, is to like, let's carefully define what the universe is. By definition, the universe is eternal. I just, uh, I'm offering this alternative because you had that call with Simon. He didn't seem convinced. He just kept saying back to you like, this isn't a reason-based argument for why the universe is eternal. This is just like language. He wasn't really convinced.
Let me read what objective ethics says here. You cannot get away from the law of causality with objectivism. The solution is to say that claiming the universe was cause is begging the question fallacy. I'm actually not sure whether the view that the universe is eternal, does that require an argument, or is it just unraveling the meaning of the concepts involved, like the meaning of universe and what in eternal? Once you are clear on what those concepts mean, it's just it must be the case that the universe is eternal. I'm not sure, like whether that needs to be grounded with something like an argument, and specifically a deductive argument. You mentioned deduction.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a bit woozy on this. So I don't know if we should continue on this topic or go to the next. I might be stalling out here. I don't know that
Fair enough.
I have enough of value to say on this to make it worthwhile. So maybe we should try the next topic. I don't know if you said this was just a warm up, but
Yeah, it was. It was.
that was quite a warm up. If that was the warm up, I don't know if I'm going to be able to take the main workout.
That's funny. That's fine. I wanted to, I'm satisfied. I just wanted to pose that to you. I was surprised. I think two or three times you've had people call in and talk about the start of the universe, and I was just a little surprised that that has come up multiple times. I didn't think that was common YouTube talk, but I guess it can be. Um, yeah, my next question was about productivity. I wanted to talk about productivity or productiveness, perhaps the virtue of Ayn Rand. And I think I have a definition of productiveness somewhere. I don't have one in my archives, shoot. But the reason I want to talk about it is because two reasons. Before I called in, you were pondering the idea of like if a Buddhist monk sits in a forest and is meditating, is that productive? I think that could be a fun question to pull on. But before we get there, I wanted to start with some more ordinary propositions. So, I recently watched a video by the YouTube channel The Rational Egoist, run by Michael Leibowitz, and
Hmm.
he had a call with James Stevens Valliant, and the video was called The Virtue of Productiveness. So, before I bring up some of the specific things they talked about, could you give me your assessment? Are you familiar with Michael Leibowitz and James Valliant? Do you have a prior opinion on them as objectivists or in objectivist community?
I am familiar a little, at least a little bit with them. I'm not sure how much I want to do by way of evaluating other objectivists or other people in the objectivist world.
Perhaps, do you have a negative opinion of them? If you don't have a negative opinion or a bad faith opinion, okay, then that at least
I don't even know if I want to say that. I did say, I think on your previous call, you asked me about what I think of the Ayn Rand fan club, so
yes.
called, and I said I have a negative opinion of them, and I think they might be better called the anti Ayn Rand Institute fan club.
Right.
I guess I don't have that kind of opinion about Michael Leibowitz. I don't have that kind of negative opinion. I don't see much of his content. I see things from him here and there on Facebook and X and YouTube, but I don't watch a lot. I did see that he doesn't call himself an objectivist now, and he had a video about why.
Huh.
But and I think James Valiant also he also stopped calling himself an objectivist, or at least for a while. I don't. Maybe he's changed that now, but last I heard, both of them had stopped using that label. But I mean, I've seen some stuff from Michael that I think is good, and we might have some disagreements, but I don't know that I could. I guess I'm not familiar enough with his content to know where we disagree, if we do. So, yeah, I don't have much to say about
That's
either
fair.
of them, or at least, I mean, I have some other thoughts, but I don't. I'm not sure I want to say everything I think.
That's fair.
So,
I'm realizing now that for what it's worth, I was just obviously hearing your reluctance, and then I was pondering like, huh, I'm pretty sure there are some Buddhist codes against gossiping, and I was just like, huh, did I break one of my own codes of ethics? So I just realized mid paragraph that now I feel like I've made a mistake by posing the question to you that way. It wasn't like sufficiently pro knowledge. I didn't pose it in a sufficiently like productive way. So I guess like I didn't hear from you like, oh, they're bad actors, stay away from them. And that's more or less what I wanted to know. So I can proceed then into the actual arguments as we should, as reason-based people. They were posing, they had a very good conversation about productiveness, by the way. I just think it was a nice video, pretty good. They're entertaining uh, people. They're good conversationalists. And they were posing scenarios like, is it productive for a student to be in school? Can we call it productiveness that people go through middle school and high school? They learn math and reading and history. And I mean, they have pretty reasonable answers, so I don't want us to just like go over what they said, but I will pose you some of the scenarios that they had, and I'd like to that's what I want here is for us to just discuss why or whether it is productive for people to engage in various activities. So why don't we start with that one? Is it productive for people to go to middle school and high school and study math, reading, and history, among other topics?
I think it can be. There's an issue of degree and diminishing returns. So it could be productive to a point, and after that, it's your time might be better spent doing something else. Um, so I guess probably for most people, if not everyone, it would be a good idea to learn something about math and history, but does that mean everyone should be a PhD in history or math? Surely not. So,
Hmm.
but so I think it's just an issue of how much it is, and um, figuring out whether it fits into your life to do more of those subjects, to study them more. That might take some work, and it's not always obvious, but I think it's good to get at least some of each of those.
Okay, I like this. I've previously heard from you some skepticism about the government requiring various levels. I think you mentioned there's a range of opinions among objectivists as to like, should the US government require some basic skills
Mm-hmm.
or should the government mandate no requirements at all? It really should be up to communities and states and so on. I think I remember, some of the top objectivists have very well articulated opinions on this topic. So, uh, along these lines, does it take away from the productiveness of school to have mandated curricula? Would you say that maybe not in all circumstances, but would you say it is a general trend that when the government mandates certain curricula, it comes at a real cost to the productiveness of school?
Well, let me start by saying I don't think the government should be involved with education, at least in a general way. Like there shouldn't be public education. Now, whether there should be some minimal requirement that they can impose on parents, like to get their kids educated in writing, reading, and arithmetic, just at least learn the basics. I doubt even that. I think I lean more towards Huron Brooks' view on this rather than Leonard Peikoff's. I think Peikoff, at least in one place, said that there should be a government requirement, or at least he was open to that. Um, but that's a separate issue from whether it's good for parents to require. I think all parents should, at least in today's world. Maybe if we're talking about cavemen 100,000 years ago, it would be different. But in today's world, I think it's good for everyone for all parents to give their kids some education. That doesn't mean the government should coerce them to do it, but not everything that is good to do is something that should be coerced. Like, I think it's good to use your reason and never go by faith, but that doesn't mean the government should outlaw going to church or being religious. So I just wanted to make that clear. Um,
That is clear to me. I interpret that as saying, based on an ethical argument, the government shouldn't coerce people into going to school. I recognize that's my interpretation. And then my question was like, let's analyze it through the lens of productiveness. Is there a cost to the productiveness of education for schools to have mandated curricula? And I guess I feel like I'm putting you in the hot seat too much. Uh, I do think there is. So if you'll permit me to put an opinion for it, I think there is actually. I think it it's somewhat similar to how economists will show like if you put a tax on a particular market, the tax comes at the loss of some production, right? Like you tax a good then less of it gets supplied and less of it gets consumed. I think there's an analogous case to be made here. If you put a required curriculum on a school, then there is a cost to the education that is supplied at that school. They can't adapt as well as they might. They can't consider local factors as much as they might. Instead, there's at least some rigidness to their curricula because it was mandated to them by either the state capital or the national capital. That'd be kind of the way I would put it most simply.
Yeah, I do think it reduces productiveness, and it's a violation of rights, and I think those are related. When you it diminishes freedom for the government to coerce a certain curriculum on people, and whenever there's coercion, there's that's an attack on the mind, and the mind is the source of wealth and progress and innovation. So I think I think it's always the case that when you violate freedom, i.e. coerce, that comes at the cost of progress.
I like that. So, although I would be interested in separately discussing education more, I'd like to continue on the through line of just productiveness. So, next scenario, is it productive for artists to exist? If some artist goes into their studio and, produces works of some kind, physical works, visual media, or music, how could we articulate the productiveness of what artists do?
Well, they're creating some material product, whether it's a painting or a statue or architecture. That is an act of productiveness. They have some vision in their mind, and they're giving it material form. And not, I guess, even if you're an intellectual, you might, I don't know if artists should be, I guess you might see them as a type of intellectual, but other types of intellectuals, like Ayn Rand, she's an author, so she's also giving material form in the form of books. She's writing books and articles. So there's some kind of product, some material product. It's not just in her head. Or today, even if we're using electronic books instead of paper books, you're typing on your computer and you're putting your words out there and into the world. Maybe they're on a hard drive instead of ink on paper, but you're still creating something material that didn't exist in the world before. So I think that's important to. Well, I don't know if is that true of every instance of productivity, that you're creating some kind of material form. I think at least for most. There's in OPAR, Objectivism, the Philosophy of Ayn Rand by Leonard Peikoff, he describes productiveness as the adjustment of nature to man. I think that's the subtitle of that section of chapter 8 on virtue. And if you're adjusting nature, so you're taking what's given in the world and you're making it better. Like, for instance, in agriculture, previously there's just wild plants growing, weeds, and then you mix your labor with it, to use Locke's phrase, and you sow some seeds and you harvest the crops, and so you've adjusted nature to make it suitable to yourself, or to supply some kind of value to yourself. So there's some kind of engagement with the external world, and maybe that's true of all instances of productivity. You're somehow adjusting the external world in some way to serve you. You're not just living in your own world of mind and ideas. But the artist is doing that. He's creating some material values. So is the writer. I don't know if there's any counterexamples to that. I was thinking of like a. Well, let me just stop there and see what you want to say.
Yeah, I like this. This is refining my ability to articulate this stuff too. I'd like to point out that was remarkably consistent with what Michael Leibowitz and James Valliant more or less discussed as well. They also talked about how some artists get hung up when you think of like failed artists or failed actors or failed painters or whatever. Some of them get hung up by just like toying with ideas in their heads, but they don't actually produce works. And that might be a common delusion in the art world is that like I should be a highly paid fashion designer just because I tut around and like act like a big shot. But to be productive, artists have to produce some material forms. They have to produce some art or products or materials. And I think they did talk about intellectuals. They pointed out that intellectuals and teachers and researchers also have to produce either books or courses or lectures or lecture videos or, YouTube lectures. Now there is really a lot of subtypes of lectures, but they also got to like, if you're an intellectual and you've developed some amazing theory, but it's only in your head, you've never even written it down, then from the perspective of objectivism, you're just not as productive as you could be because at the very least, writing it down protects against you forgetting it later or you dying. And it would be even more productive if you took what you wrote down and you published it and shared it because now it can take form in more minds. And even better if your lecture or something is so stimulating and applicable that it also changes people's behaviors because now your teachings have also taken material form by changing the behaviors of others. So I think they too also agreed like intellectuals have to produce something material as well, even if like a lecture video is a bit of a subtle material form, but it is still taking something that was in your head and materializing it or realizing it in a sense that is captured by productiveness. So I like what you said there. I just wrote it down. I think this is something I want to toy with as well. Is it a firm rule that productiveness must produce material forms? That's just my articulation of a thought you had back there.
Mm-hmm.
I want to toy with that too. And I think it is true so long as we allow a very careful notion of material form. Because like a lecture video or a YouTube video with a careful notion is a material form. It's a material entity that can be accessed. I can perceive it, right? Like I can go search up your YouTube video and click on it, and then my eyeballs will see it and my ears will hear it. So as long as we allow that subtle notion of what a material form is, I think that might be a firm rule. But I also wrote down what you said there that it's covered in OPAR. I'll look for that as well about what productiveness is.
I was just thinking about
So
psychotherapists or cognitive behavioral therapists as one type of psychotherapist. They're, I guess, what they're aiming at is helping people change the way they think. And I guess downstream from that, if you think differently, then you will feel and maybe also act differently. But they're, I guess, the product, in a sense, the product is internal. They're trying to change people's minds. I mean, that's what I'm trying to do also. With I'm promoting a philosophy, which is a set of ideas, and is that a physical product? If I'm changing people's ideas, well, the means of transmitting might be physical, like the digital technology that's used to transmit the live stream. But the end product is, you might say, is non-physical, since it's ideas in people's minds. So this is pretty fresh territory for me. So I don't have it all worked out.
that's okay. I was hoping to discuss this. Um, I'd like to move on to the next case, but I think that the case of artists and intellectuals, because I will now combine them, is an important one. But I'd like to move on to a third case, and perhaps this will also dislodge some thinking. Let's take the case of, say, a man like Mike Mentzer, famous bodybuilder and writer, right? Produced books, produced videos. To this day, you can still find like Twitter videos that are just like 1 minute, 2 minute clips of him in a very aesthetic way, right? Like him monologuing a little bit about the power of self-awareness and volition. So let's take a man like Mike Mentzer. He dedicated himself to not only physical weightlifting, he went to the gym and lifted over perhaps thousands of hours over his lifetime, but he also conducted careful experiments about how his body was responding to different levels of exertion, how his physical systems, his endocrine system, his digestive system were reacting to different pre-workouts, different times of day. And he also was, talking about what weightlifting does to the mind. He was exploring that and practicing how to explain that to others and observing how to best communicate the benefits of working out for the mind. So, how might we articulate is it productive for a man like Mike Mentzer to lift weights for thousands of hours and share his experiences with others?
I think it could be. If he enjoys this, I think that's crucial. That you're enjoying what you're doing, and I think this is like you could be very productive in a sense, but it's also a waste of time because it's not leading to the ultimate value, which is happiness. So if you choose some career um, as whatever, and you make a lot of money at it, but it doesn't, if it's not producing happiness, ultimately it's worthless, and you're producing worthless things, at least for yourself. Maybe it's worth something to others. Let's say you're a dentist and you hate dentistry. You would have been much happier in some other career. So maybe you produce lots of good results for your patients, but it's not good for you because it doesn't lead to happiness. So with Mentzer, assuming that what he's doing is contributing to his happiness, it's I think it is productive and in a good way. He's teaching others, and if he's making money at it, he's getting some value in return to sustain himself. So, yeah, I don't see why it wouldn't be productive to do what he did.
Okay. I'd like to make sure I understood certain parts of it. Is the productiveness in the notion that as a virtue of ethics is the productiveness of his career that he was producing refined notions of joy in himself and teaching others, and other people could follow his methods and attain the same joy. And in a second sense, it is entertaining to watch him and to appreciate him. So like even for people who don't lift weights like he does, it is a joyful experience to listen to his inspirational words and watch his very awe-inspiring lifts on video.
Mm-hmm.
Is this a is that a correct articulation in your view of why his career was productive?
Maybe I don't see any problem. I mean, entertainment, that's a value. Sports athletes, that's, I think, even though a lot of people aren't themselves, they're not trying to become athletes and get tips on how to be a good basketball player, but they might just enjoy watching the sport, and athletes provide that kind of value, that entertainment value or aesthetic value. I'm not sure exactly if it's in its own category, or like comedy, that might be a more clear example of entertainment. But I'm not but anyways, sports provide some kind of value. And yeah, Mentzer could have provided that, just the pleasure of seeing a very nice physique. But then there's, as you mentioned, there's the other types of value. People who themselves are aiming to be bodybuilders, or at least get stronger, healthier, they can also gain value from what he's taught. I don't know if he personally was aiming at providing entertainment for people, or if that was just a nice byproduct of what he was aiming to do. But I think doing that thing, providing entertainment, can be a legitimate form of productivity.
Okay. Okay. Now one more just like refining question. And I just learned on your stream that Mike Mentzer considered himself an objectivist, or at least a student of objectivism. I reacted to that at the start of the stream. That is cool for me. That gives me a fresh perspective on him and objectivism for that matter. But okay. So one little sub point here. Um, Ayn Rand, I've been recently reading PWNI, Philosophy Who Needs It, and she explains there that her aesthetic theory is metaphysical values. And I haven't found like a bite-sized articulation of what she means by that, but my understanding is she's saying the best things to have aesthetics about, aesthetic, experiences and arts and art forms is on metaphysical values. And since Mentzer, as a bodybuilder, made it a big point that he did not want to dope, he didn't want to take steroids or performance enhancing drugs. That was a big part of his, uh, I guess, like public persona, was that he wanted to show that you could achieve pretty great results by being natural, or natty, as the bodybuilders call it. So, would it make sense to say that if you put two bodybuilders together and one of them achieved his physique and his success via natural methods, quote unquote, while a second individual had to use man-made supplements, would it make sense to say the natural bodybuilder achieved something of greater aesthetic value? He was more productive at producing aesthetic value because he merely used the natural properties of his body and the physical effects of exercises, compared to a second individual who had to use artificial supplements. Does it make sense to say the first person was more productive at producing aesthetic value?
I don't know if I would say that. Are they're more productive at, well, it could depend, partly on what your preference is in body type. And maybe this relates to the point that value is objective, not intrinsic. So you might prefer, maybe it gives you more aesthetic pleasure to look at a natural physique, rather than someone who is pumping himself full of steroids. Or maybe you have the reverse. Maybe you really like that huge monster look, and you find that more attractive. Or maybe you find both really gross and you don't like large muscles. Maybe you like a leaner look. Now, there's and this could correlate with health. Like even if, I think even if you might look very good in some people's eyes, at least, it might have some very negative impacts on your overall physical health. And someone like Ronnie Coleman, he was I think 8-time Mr. Olympia. He had some, I don't know exactly what his health problems were much later, but I think he had some serious health problems. I
He
don't know.
did. I think he did. He like broke some part of his spine, and that's why if you look up recent footage of him, he's always walking around with like a walker, even though he still is fairly young. He has to walk around with assistance. He can't freely walk anymore because he did so much damage during heavy lifts to his body.
And that might be a turnoff if you know that. Like if you know that the price of getting to look like he did when he was at his prime, Mr. Olympia shape, if you know that the price of doing that is going to be some really debilitating condition that he suffers from later in life, maybe that would color your in diminish your ability to enjoy his prime Mr. Olympia physique. So that, but I don't, I wouldn't say that one is more productive of value than the other. I think it might just depend on tastes to some extent. People have different tastes. Maybe this is somewhat like music. Ayn Rand didn't think music was a very objectively evaluatable field right now,
Hmm. Hmm.
in contrast to other art forms like literature. Um, it remains to be clearly or scientifically defined, and maybe there are other things like that. Perhaps bodybuilding physiques. Maybe there's no way at present to objectively say one physique is superior to another. There might just be some irreducible optionality. Like people have different tastes. Some people, in terms of just like dating, that's another preference issue where I think there's a lot of optionality and um, maybe hair color. Do you like blondes? Do you like darker hair? And maybe what your preference is has something to do with the way you were raised or something that happened to you as a child, somebody you knew when you were a child. Maybe they had made a very strong impression on you. I don't think you can objectively say like one is superior aesthetically. Now there might be limits to this. So, if someone has like huge warts on all over his face, then maybe you could say, well, that's objectively ugly or not beautiful. But when it comes to finer discriminations, like red hair, blonde hair, black hair, I don't know that there is a way to say one is objectively better than the other. Or and similarly with the bodybuilding physiques, I don't see how a way to say one is more productive of value than another. Like maybe I think Chris Bumstead, he competed in the the classic physique type. They have different divisions. There's
Yes.
and the heaviest guys, the monster guys, they don't compete in the classic division. So you might think actually I prefer the larger guys. It gives me more enjoyment to admire a physique like Ronnie Coleman than it does to admire Chris Bumstead. And maybe you admire him as well, but just not as much. But I wouldn't say one is. You might, and maybe like Coleman is more productive for me in terms of the value I get than Bumstead, but maybe it's the reverse for somebody else. I don't see a way to say it should objectively be one way for everybody.
I believe that's correct. And as a footnote, I'm somewhat familiar with bodybuilding as a sport, and there have been some attempts to introduce objectivity, but they do seem dubious to me. So, one obvious aspect is you just make it about the numbers, right? Like I can squat 500 pounds, you can squat 450, I do more than you. So, objectively, I'm stronger. I'm a stronger power lifter. Or there's been attempts to do it by size. They'll like take a tape measure and be like, oh, your mats measure so and so many inches. That's a bigger distance. That must be more aesthetic. Or, like you just articulated, so I presume you have some familiarity as well. There is a physique category, or it might be like something physique, where I heard that there's like a rubric. So they'll have contestants measure the size of their triceps and the size of their calves, and you're graded on whether the ratio of your tricep to calf is 1 to 1, because they just objectively assume that, if your triceps are way bigger than your calves, that's disproportional. And so they just have like a big list of ratios. Like this, the ratio of this to this should be 1 to 1. The ratio of this to this should be 2 to 1. But to me, that also is somewhat dubious, is like who came up with the idea that your calf and your tricep should be the same size? Like who determined that like role model was the right role model? So these are attempts to make it objective, but they just seem rather dubious to me. Like, I don't know, suspect to, are they really objective, even if it is a easier standard to measure and apply? And that's perhaps why just like judge subjective determinations still seems to be like the most popular category. It's like the one lay people think of the most is, Mr. Olympia. It's just whoever the judges like, even though in one sense it's less objective, people still seem to like that category the most because it's it's the worst system except for all the others. Um, I wanted
Hopefully, it's at
to,
least clear in advance what the standards are. So whether you like the standards or not, you at least know what the standards are, and then you train accordingly if you're a bodybuilder. And
it would be fun to pursue this line of thread actually. What is the aesthetics in the bodybuilding world? It's actually an interesting topic, but I will soon go beyond my expertise, and I'd rather continue on the topic of productiveness a little bit. So let me ask one more like sub question, a refining question. For the case of Mike Mentzer, would it make sense for me to say his career provides different kinds of values? One kind of value is like the dollars earned. I'm sure he earned some amount through sponsorships and prize monies for winning or placing in his competitions. A second kind of value he produced is perhaps like social media awareness. I guess he didn't have social media in his time, but whatever. Media awareness, certain number of eyeballs, video views, reach or engagement. And we could probably measure, at least in principle, like the number of eyeballs that ever saw him or heard of his name, or ears that heard of his name. And there's a third category of value, which is the metaphysical value that his example provides, because he stands as an example to whoever wants to look him up of what it's capable to do with, the nature of your body and your mind and rest and thoughtful methods. So would it make sense to say, here are these three forms of value, and we could in principle measure his career in these forms of value, and perhaps a different bodybuilder, like we were just offering some other names, perhaps a different bodybuilder produced more dollars and was more valuable his career in that aspect, but perhaps another bodybuilder who, I don't know, cheated and used tons of performance enhancing drugs, maybe such a person got more dollars and more reach, but is a less valuable example because it teaches less and it's less inspiring and there's less metaphysical value to what they demonstrated. Does it make sense to measure people in these forms, different forms of value?
I'm not sure. I was thinking about the baseball cases like Mark McGuire and Sammy Sosa and Barry
Hmm.
Bonds, who I think they set home run records, but then it was later found out they were using steroids or some kind of hormone, I think, against the rules. And then I guess that takes away your appreciation to some degree of what they did. Like if you thought they did it legitimately without steroids, and then it turns out they did, then I think I might have experienced some disappointment when I learned that. Or Lance Armstrong, another example.
Hmm.
So yeah, I guess that could. Well, that could also happen in bodybuilding, although I don't think it's against the rules there to use steroids or other hormones. Correct me if I'm wrong, if you know, but I thought it was pretty widely known and accepted that people can use whatever. So, and that's within the rules of the bodybuilding organizations who run
I
these competitions.
I think it's very competition specific.
Okay.
Some will provide some tolerance for steroids, which is why so many competitors got away with steroids for decades. But they might have a hard rule against other forms of performance enhancing drug that they do want to take a stand on. Some competitions don't have any rules at all, but will still require you to take a drug test, so at least you and everybody else knows what it was you were taking. And there is a category called natty or natural, where there is a pretty fixed list that's like, you are defined as a natty bodybuilder if you have never taken something on this list. And then that's a pretty strict and consistent list. And there are some bodybuilders who like will say, like, I am a natty bodybuilder. And people who don't declare themselves that, everyone like wonders, like, are you not declaring yourself that because you're secretly taking steroids? Is more or less the implication. And there is a fall from grace when someone who claims to be natty is later busted for like they're actually doping. There is like a measurable drop in their social media following, like their reputation. So there does seem to be some kind of social media reaction to learning that people are doping. And I can validate what you said. I'm not a fan of baseball, so I guess I didn't like have any particular opinion when Barry Bonds or Michael McGuire or whoever was caught doping. But I can remember that like people in my community did say that. Like it was the talk of the town was like, "Yo, did you hear that that guy was doping? What?" And then people generally had negative things to say. So I can validate what you said. People did treat it like it was a disappointment to learn that a star was doping. Like it says something negative about them. So, take that for some like weak evidence that people treat artificial means of physical success as a cost, or like it comes at the trade-off of some form of value for them.
Well, it's that. I don't think it's that it was artificial, but that it was against the rules. Like if it was not against the rules, you could take whatever you want. Then I wouldn't have a problem with it. I wouldn't be disappointed. But I think it's that the MLB had a rule that you can't do this, so they cheated, and that's how they were able to break the home run records.
That is a good point. Okay. I feel satisfied with the case of Mike Mentzer and bodybuilding. May I move on to a fourth case for
Okay.
productiveness? So, suppose there is an individual, and I'm going to give him a name. I think I will transparently let you see where I'm going with this. By suppose there's an individual, his name is the Buddha, and he has lived a life where, what we know of his history is he was once a prince and was just like a greedy, lazy person, but ultimately didn't like his life. He like couldn't be proud of it. He didn't like it. So he stops being a prince, and then he goes and lives a life of extreme monasticism where he's like starving and he's living with other monks who practice extreme monasticism. And then he decides, like, this is not the answer either. When you starve yourself and live in poverty, you're just constantly suffering. You're suffering from hunger and thirst and physical uncomfort, and it's cold to sleep outside. So this can't be the answer either. So he spends a bunch of years trying to find an ideal lifestyle, and he settles on a lifestyle which he calls the middle path, where through simple living and using your mind to contemplate truthful things, he eventually becomes really happy, deeply happy and peaceful. And he just lives in bliss for a while before deciding that the correct thing for him to do is to solidify some of his teachings, turn it into a memorable system, and then communicate it to others. And he says inspiring things like, quote, "The delight in the truth surpasses all delights." And he teaches this and spreads it to people so that they can apply it and become happy as well, like him. Could we say that such an individual has a productive career by leading a life like this, where he experiments and arrives at a lifestyle that makes him happy, and then he solidifies it into a system and then articulates it to others? Could we say that this is a productive career?
If you put it like that, yeah, I think you could. He figures out what makes him happy and then he teaches others that. I think that's great. I would wonder though, if does he actually do that? The, did he actually experience happiness, or did he just claim to experience happiness? I think there are certain requirements of happiness which I'm not sure he fulfilled. And let me think if I can. So if you take happiness to be the absence of suffering, I don't think that is happiness. I wouldn't call it that. And I think that is how it's, well, I don't know if that's exactly how it's understood, but there have been what are called happiness studies, and apparently Scandinavian countries often score really highly on these, and socialists will often point to these countries as evidence that government intervention is a good kind of system. The Nordic model, they call it sometimes. Although I think there might be less government intervention than socialists think there is. But anyways, the main point is that how you conceive of happiness, I think, is it might be mistaken in the case not only of these happiness studies, but maybe also in the case of the Buddha, what he calls happiness. Now, surely he used a different word. Happiness is an English word, and sometimes the word that's used in the original language, it doesn't translate exactly, but maybe if you're a translator, you choose the closest thing you can find. Enlightenment, I think that's a term that's often used, and but I guess I'm suspicious that whatever is translated into English as happiness is actually the same thing as like what Ayn Rand would mean by happiness.
That's a great point, and I think that is a excellent start, is to be a little skeptical that the correct definition of his terms, the correct translation would be happiness. And indeed, if you'll permit me a little bit of technicality, in Buddhism, we differentiate three very subtle emotions. We have bliss versus rapture versus happiness. So rapture is a term that comes up in the religion, or piti was his language. Of course, he spoke Pali, but a lot of the Buddhist teachings would translate to Sanskrit. But anyway, piti means rapture, which refers to like a burst of good feeling in your body. And we actually have a framework called the 5 levels of rapture, because you can have a minor rapture where you just feel like some goosebumps. You have like a piece of ice cream and you're just like, ooh, and that feels really good. But The fifth and highest level of rapture is called all pervading. And I could find a quote of it from a text or something, but all pervading rapture is when you just feel like waves of good feelings throughout the body. Some people feel this when they have like a really good massage, or some people feel this when they have like a triumphant success, like you have worked for years and years and years, and you finally finish a long-term project, and you just have a momentary like yes, and you just feel like a tightening of the muscles in your body, like an all-pervading rapture where all your muscles tighten and you're like yes. So that's rapture. It's just like a momentary burst of good feeling, but we differentiate that from bliss or sukha, which is like your body feels good. Like you don't feel particularly hungry, you don't feel particularly tired, you don't feel particularly hurt or injured. You just feel just blissful. It's like a physical bliss. And then happiness, and I'm actually blanking at what the Pali word for happiness is here, but it usually means like a mental joy. Like you scan what it is you're doing and where you're at in life, and your mind only feels good feelings. You don't have any particular regrets. You don't have any particular like shames. You just like scan where you're at with your mind and you're like, I feel pretty happy. Like I don't think I made any major mistakes or hurts or injuries today. I feel like I can't think of anything that I did wrong today. So, and I just found the word. The word is ananda. Ananda is happiness in Buddhism. So, yeah, to your point, we do differentiate like physical bliss versus momentary rapture versus mental happiness. We kind of differentiate those three, and then there are corresponding words for those. So, my apologies for getting a little rambly there, but to affirm your point, yeah, okay, one does have to have a correct notion of happiness. If a person thought that happiness meant rapture, it means like that burst of good feeling. Such a person might seek thrills, right? They might like go skydiving every day, or they might like take intensive drugs because it makes your body just like burst with emotion. You're just like, yes, all the time in your body. And at least in Buddhism, there is a place for rapture. Like it can be a very powerful feeling, and it can, when used productively, it can be very good. For example, like I'm glad that college graduations produce a feeling of rapture for most people, right? It's an appropriate burst of good feeling at the end of a long journey that you get to enjoy that with your friends and family, and you get to like walk across a stage and there's bright lights and a special uniform. Like that's an appropriate time to have some rapture. But yeah, when the Buddha says the delight in the truth surpasses all delights, he's not really talking about getting like momentary thrills. He's more talking about like a mental joy. Like it feels good in a blameless, non-regretful way to ponder true things and then have it help you clean up your mind and your body and your relationships. And then you get the benefit of just like scanning your life and being like, I only see good things in what I'm doing, so this is delightful. But you can react to some of that, or we can tie this back to where we got off on the through line, which was, is it productive for someone to, write down arguments like these and come up with three different words for emotions like these to help articulate for people like, hey, let's be careful. Here are three concepts for happiness that are subtly different, but some of these might be misguided. So keep these straight, don't blend these all together. Here are three concepts, and here's some other concepts, and here's a whole tradition on how to learn these things and practice these things. Would you do you feel persuaded that it can be a productive career for such an individual to come up with these things and practice them and teach them to others?
I think it could. I'm wondering if I looked into the details, like if I started reading this Wikipedia article on Theraveda Buddhism that I had up. Would I find lots of things to disagree with? Maybe, but without digging into it, just as you stated it, yeah, if you're finding ways to help yourself and other people find happiness, actual happiness, and as if that means what Ayn Rand means by it, or at least something close, certainly I think that would be productive, good thing to do.
Okay, then I feel satisfied with where we got to. Now, I'm not gonna like flex like this was a big win or something. This is just one of the rationalist virtues, and the virtues, of course, should not be understood as a replacement for rationality. Like there is still a certain truth and falsehood to teachings, right? Like teaching true things, A is A. Either a certain belief is true or it's false. So there is a certain like, are the teachings true? But at least I hope that we rationally got to the destination of someone who meditates and contemplates and then toys with their system and refines it and teaches it to others. It is at least productive or potentially productive to do such things. I think for me, that's a minor victory that maybe I read too far. Let me not sign you on to things that I didn't properly justify. Obviously, such monks are well known for meditating, right? They do sit in the forest for a bit and just mentally go over their beliefs and what seems true and what doesn't, and they kind of compare and contrast with perceptual experience. Uh, do you feel convinced that such a monk sitting in the forest, meditating and performing such an activity is productive? I don't think I gave you a fair shot to react to that piece of it.
I'm not sure. I think it might depend on how much they're meditating. Alex Epstein came to mind. Do you know Alex Epstein?
I don't recognize this name.
Okay, he's a objectivist who focuses on energy issues. He's written a book called The Moral Case for Fossil Fuels, and he meditates, or at least he used to. He had a podcast called The Human Flourishing Project,
Huh.
and I think in that podcast, at least in some episodes, I think he talked about how he meditates. Now, I think he's a very productive person. He's written a best-selling book, a New York Times bestseller, but I think he, at least several years ago, I think it was a regular practice of his to meditate every day. And hold on, I gotta switch out my AirPods because this one just died.
Okay.
I have to change back to my podcast mic, which I have just done. Okay. So I don't think it's anti-objectivists for him to engage in meditation. He gets some kind of benefit from it. I don't know exactly what it is. Maybe it clears his mind or relaxes him so that he can then be more productive, actually, in the rest of his day. But I guess I wonder, though, about the quantity of meditation here that the monks do. Like if Alex did as much meditation as the monks do, I don't know how much it is, and maybe it varies from monk to monk. And but if you're 24/7 meditating or something close to that, I guess then I really start to wonder: is it adding to your life, or is it being used as a kind of escape? There's a concern about escaping from suffering. I think that seems to be a theme among Buddhists, and you can correct me if that's not your understanding, but I don't think Alex uses it that way when he meditates. I think maybe it's for an hour a day or 20 minutes. I don't know exactly how long, but I can see how it might be helpful and a good thing to do. I don't do it myself, but I can see how it might be. Maybe I should, but if you're doing it all day, then it's I start to think it's probably not good. It's overdoing it, and your focus is somehow off. So let me just pause there.
Yeah, I mean that makes sounds perfectly correct to me. And at least in the historical texts of the Buddha's life, he lived for a bit with monks who would meditate 24/7. They would just not stand. And he eventually abandoned that life because he more or less said, like, guys, we're all skin and bones, like nobody wants to go find food, and we're just constantly in physical pain and agony, but it's pretty impressive that we can like meditate ourselves into a state of bliss, and then we can temporarily ignore that our bodies are starving, but eventually you open your eyes again and the starvation comes back. So this can't be the answer either. And that's why his teaching is called the middle path, is you don't want to live in a state of just so much luxury that you're constantly slothful. That's a word we use, is slothful. You don't want to have like so much eating that your belly's always full and you're just always like low energy because you're in a food coma. But on the other extreme, you also don't want to be so much in starvation that like your mind is constantly thinking of food and your body is constantly signaling hunger, and now your mind and body are not free to do other things. There is clearly some middle ground. You have to have your needs taken care of so that your mind is available for you to put it to valuable use. But you don't want to like overly indulge your mind. Like there's a middle path. So yeah, I think that is exactly correct. And in contemporary Buddhism, we have this phrase, jhana junkies, and it's basically people who just like sit in meditation in these rapture states, and they're just like sitting there with these goofy facial expressions, like they're feeling intense feelings of happiness, but it's not like a particularly meaningful life. They're jhana junkies. They're like addicted to the bursts of good feelings that come from meditation, and you don't want to do that either. And some people end up in that case, and we have to warn people against it. Is like, you don't want to do that either, guys. There is a, it's good that you can like close your eyes for 20 minutes and feel a quick burst of good feeling, and then that might help you relax after work, but you don't want to overdo it because then you never want to stop, and now you're a jhana junkie. You don't want to do that either. So, what you said makes sense. Yeah, I think 24/7 meditation is not a good idea. With one caveat, I must say though. So having said that, um, think of an individual like let's like Mike Mentzer again. I'm sure before a competition, there were times when he was like working out particularly aggressively, right? Like leading up to a competition, he was in and out of the gym a lot, or he was only thinking about his workout programming and he was like neglecting other parts of his life. But then after a competition, I'm sure he like went back to more ordinary concerns, right? He like called his family to see what's up with them, and he probably took a rest from his intensive schedule to go back to a more sensible and sustainable form of workouts. There are similar notions among Buddhists. So like if an individual is like on the cusp of a mental breakthrough, like it's clicking for them that there's some aspect of their life that is unhealthy and they need to abandon it, they might temporarily have a very intensive meditation schedule where they're meditating like 10 hours per day, but it's generally assumed that you should have the breakthrough soon, and then you can go back to a more sustainable schedule again. You wouldn't want to always be meditating your entire life. That just seems like a really bad sign, like something went wrong. So you probably only want to do that as needed, to taste for a few moments in your lifetime when you're like on the cusp of some big breakthrough, and then an intensive schedule would help you. But so does that notion make sense to you that maybe you might like have small bursts of excessive activity or what would seem excessive, but it's for a purpose that would end and you'd go back to a sustainable schedule? Does that jive with your intuition?
I think so. Yeah, I thought of Ayn Rand when you were talking about this. So I heard that there was one stretch of like 36 hours she was writing straight. And normally I think she would write for a certain number of hours per day, like 6 hours or 8 hours or something. But I guess one time she was feeling particularly inspired, or I don't know exactly why. Maybe she figured out something crucial to the plot, but whatever it was, I think Leonard Peikoff mentioned that once she wrote for 36 hours straight. Uh, but I guess that's probably not a healthy thing to do on a regular basis. But yeah, as a one-off, I can see how that would be a reasonable and good thing to do. And yeah, maybe there's also cases like that with meditation. I wonder what's driving the meditation. So like what is the purpose of it? If it's like for Alex, I think maybe it's to relax and so that he's more, or to calm himself or something like that. So then he's more capable of being productive the rest of his day. And but what is driving the Buddhists to do it? Is it so that then when then they're relaxed and better able to do other things?
I can explain, and I'll
Or
be
is it some kind of escape? That's what I wonder about. Escape from suffering. And I think if it's the latter, then I wonder, like, are they just trying to evade the problem rather than face the problem? So I think what's driving the meditation might also be relevant here, and not just how much of it there is.
sure. I'll be relatively brief in my answer here. Thank you for allowing me to elaborate. Basically, um, a fairly common way to explain what Theravada Buddhism is it's three trainings. One is a system of ethics, and it's relatively simple compared to objectivist ethics, I must say. But that's like one training is what is ethics? There was a second training, which is called concentration meditation, or in Pali, samadhi or shamatha meditation. And then there's a third training, which is called wisdom meditation or vipassana. And you may have heard this word, vipassana. I hear that word used more for like meditation centers in Colorado and California. They just call themselves like vipassana centers. So before the Buddha, and this is acknowledged by him and historical texts, there was already a rich tradition of concentration meditation or shamatha. And that's the kind where you concentrate on some object and then you have feelings of bliss. And if you concentrate really well, you might have a feeling of rapture. Like that's shamatha, that preceded the Buddha. But one of the things he articulated was this can't be the answer, guys. Is he's like, if you just like, there's some merit to this, life involves different kinds of frustrations and physical or mental aches. Like you might be frustrated that a project fails, and if you don't properly attend to that, it'll just linger in your mind as a grievance. And then eventually you might like blow up on your boss because you have all these grievances. So it might be beneficial to have a regular practice where you like focus on the really good things about your job. You love that it pays you money. You love that it's an opportunity for growth. And that might allow you to relieve your petty grievances so that they don't build up to something bigger. So there's some merit to that. But, and maybe you have like physical aches. Like I worked a fast food job in my young 20s, and you just get like physical aches, man. You're just on your feet all day, and like bits of grease jump off the fryer would burn my skin. It's like, ouch. So there's some relief to like taking a really good shower and then sitting down and then just being like, and taking like really, really deep breaths to relieve the aches of the day. There's something to that. And people who don't find time to relieve those aches like burn out or it builds into some kind of explosive grievance. So again, there's some merit to that. But the one of the original contributions of the Buddha is he said like, guys, this can't be the answer. Like if you just like temporarily relieve your suffering, but then it comes right back to you when you open your eyes again, you haven't really gained anything. So one of his original contributions as a philosopher is Vipassana or wisdom. And the goal of Vipassana meditation is for the practitioner to ponder a sequence of propositions and to internalize them until they start out being these like abstract propositions, but they become innate and intuitive to you. And then the individual goes through these abrupt qualitative changes to personality. And these are called change of lineage. That's a technical term in Vipassana, where a lineage of thought would be like a person has certain habits of thought, habits of behavior, and then you undergo a change of lineage. So maybe a person like used to always snap at their parents, but then they came to a realization in their teen years, and so now they no longer snap at their parents. That would be a change of lineage because they used to behave a certain way, and then something about their worldview changed, and now they no longer think that way. And that's one way to articulate what Vipassana does to a person is you want to get rid of lineages of thought that are unwholesome and you want to replace them with lineages of thought that are wholesome. And these occur at during momentary experiences called change of lineage. It's like a momentary click in your mind and you don't see the world the same way. And now you have a qualitative change to your behavior that is healthier and more well adjusted. And now you're happier and less prone to suffering and you have more productive thoughts and habits. And feel free to stop me if you want to react to what I've said so far, but I can provide a textual example of a change of lineage in one of Ayn Rand's writings. I have a bold claim.
All right. Well, maybe that would be a good finale. Actually, I'm actually feeling tired. I don't know if that's coming across, but I'm short on sleep today,
Oh,
and
snap.
I might come across as low energy. But anyways, I am feeling kind of low energy. So how about we try to wrap up soon? You could make this point about Ayn Rand's, and then if we didn't get to some points you wanted to, we could do it next time.
Yeah, yeah, no problem.
So
Uh,
you said there's some parallel to in Ayn Rand to what you were saying about this wisdom phase or this lineage
yeah,
something.
yeah. I've I've got it. It's actually I'm not sure where I want to fit this in my in my like manuscript, but I want to fit this in somewhere. Like clearly this happened in Atlas Shrugged, so Ayn Rand seems at least aware that this kind of experience can happen, even if she's unaware that this is a named concept in Vipassana. Let's see. Yeah, it's an Atlas Shrug, and there's a moment, and I like highlighted it and added it to my archive because I'm like, this is awesome. Hmm.
If you know a few words, I could search for it on my Kindle.
Gosh, yeah. I've almost found it in my copy of Atlas Shrugged, but um, It's the moment when the United States is falling apart and she's trying to decide whether she wants to bail everybody out of yet another catastrophe. And then
Plot spoilers, by the way, for anyone listening. Beware.
totally, okay, I got it. I got it. I got it. I found it. Yes. So we can find it in your copy, but I tagged this as like whether Ayn Rand knows it or not, she has just described Vipassana cycle or a change of lineage. It's in the chapter The Generator. Okay, I found it. It starts with the word he shuddered, only one thing is certain.
Okay. He shuddered. Why don't I see that in the preview? Only one thing is certain.
Yeah. Or maybe an easier phrase. Search the bridge is gone.
Okay. The bridge is gone. All right, that didn't turn up anything. I don't know why. Sometimes I've noticed this before. I've searched for phrases that I know are in the book, and Kindle does not produce any hits. Um, so I could just go to that chapter and search for the paragraph. I'm in the generator chapter, but some of the chapters are sometimes like 40, 50 pages. So
Yeah, this is a long one. If it helps,
unless
it's before the Ferris Persuader comes out, and it's after the group of leaders is like trying to figure out what to do next. And in the middle, Dagny goes back to her office. And the phrase is, the bridge is gone.
okay, let's see page. Okay, well it's still not turning up results. Just go ahead and read it.
Okay. So I'll read it. It's only like a paragraph here, but she's back at her office. She's packing her belongings, and the chief engineer comes in to tell her the Taggart Bridge has been vaporized. So now I will read verbatim. He shuddered. Only one thing is certain. The bridge is gone. Miss Taggart, we don't know what to do. She leaps to her desk and seized the telephone receiver. Her hand stopped in midair. Then, slowly, twistedly, with the greatest effort ever demanded of her, she began to move her arm down to place the receiver back. It seemed to her that it took a long time, as if her arm had to move against some atmospheric pressure that no human body could combat. And in the span of these few brief moments, in the stillness of a blinding pain, she knew what Francisco had felt that night 12 years ago, and what a boy of 26 had felt when he had looked at his motor for the last time. Miss Taggart, cried the chief engineer, we don't know what to do. The receiver clicked softly back into its cradle. I don't either, she answered. In a moment, she knew it was over. So I assert to you that what she's described here, Ayn Rand, is that Dagny Taggart has this intense internal experience. It's described here, right? She was combating some atmospheric pressure. Her arm was like twisting, quote, with the greatest effort ever demanded of her. So Dagny, like out of habit, just like reached for the telephone and was like picking it up, and she was gonna like problem solve like she always does. But some internal transformation took over her so that she like forced her hand to put the receiver back down. And in that moment, she knew what it was that Francisco had felt that had changed his behavior. And she knew in that moment what John Galt had experienced many, many years ago that had changed his behavior. And in that moment, her behavior had changed. And in Vipassana terminology, she had experienced a change of lineage that only took a few seconds. And from that point on, right, from the rest of the book, she's like totally cool with abandoning the company. Everything preceding that, she just couldn't let it go, no matter how hard people reasoned with her. But that's the turning point where from then on, she gets it, and she's a new person, in other words.
All
So
right. Well, thanks for sharing that passage and your thoughts. And I want to thank Greg and Objective Ethics, who I see did some super stickers and a super chat. Objective Ethics says, thanks for the ad-free entertainments. Great conversation, brother. I appreciate that. I feel like I might have under-delivered today because I am feeling tired. But I'm glad you got something out of it, and I hope to see you all again in the next stream. So I think I want to wrap up now. Do you have any last points, Mellow Mau, you want to make before I close out the show while you're
not at
up here?
all. Thank you for allowing me to call in and for entertaining my questions again. I appreciate your patience and your good faith conversations. Hope you get a lot of rest. I think it was a good stream, regardless of the technical difficulties. So thank you for letting me call in today, Dan.
Oh, you're welcome. All right. I'll catch you later.
Have a good one.
Okay, bye-bye. Okay. I don't know if I should mention that, like my internal states when I'm streaming, or should I just act as if nothing is out of the ordinary and see how it goes. Maybe part of what contributed to my feeling of tiredness is all the technical difficulties and all the headache or stress of dealing with that. I mean, it wasn't really stressful. It was just it was unfortunate that I had those distractions, but I guess they're less likely to happen in the future because now I think I know what caused it, or at least what the solution was. So I had to restart my computer, and that fixed the problem. It wasn't that I had to update the software, although maybe that will help with some other issues. Having updated OBS and Zoom. Now my audio mixers are appearing horizontal again. Why is that happening? That's weird. That is really weird. Okay. Well, at least the video isn't freezing. That was the main problem that led to me upgrading the software and restarting. It says OBS 32.1.2. I think that's the latest version, but the audio mixers now appear horizontal instead of vertical. Whereas when I first downloaded the new version, my audio mixers were vertical. So I don't know what's going on here. All right, so typically I would stream 5 days from now, but given that I'm now doing some TikTok streams, I might decide to adjust that schedule. So I don't know if I'm going to stream 5 days from now. So I guess you'll just have to wait and see. And I'll read some of these chats later that I haven't read yet. All right, thank you for the likes. How are we doing on those? 8 likes. Okay, thanks for those. Thank you for your participation and your financial contributions, Greg and Objective Ethics. And Mellow Mau, thanks for calling in. All right, I'll see you again next stream, whenever that is. You can also join TikTok if you want, and maybe you'll see me on there. All right, have a good rest of your evening. And I'm going to go sleep. All right, where's my closeout button? Oh, am I frozen again? No, I'm not frozen. I like that music, that song from the movie Frozen. I haven't actually seen the movie, but I have seen the song Let It Go. I like that. And I've seen some good versions of that by at least one TikToker. Oh, I don't have my... I have to open another window in order to get to the place where I can end my stream. Here we go, analytics. Okay. I leave you with the hope that next time we have a smooth stream with no technical difficulties and I have plenty of energy. All right. Catch you all later. Bye-bye.